एकम् अक्षरम् हृदि निरन्तरम् भासते स्वयं लिख्यते हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहमहमिति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा चिन्वता मज्जता पवनचलनरूपा आत्मनिष्ठो देहं ब्रह्म जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तत भाषक्ति समये सिद्धा श्रद्धा ओहं भावयुतः कुतो वरधिया दृष्टात्मनिष्टात्मा सोहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं सोहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं Namo Ramana. With this, we begin our meditations on Anma Bodham, the work by Adi Shankara, which has been also translated by Bhagavan into Tamil. We will be doing the meditations keeping self-enquiry in mind as the sadhana. In discussing Atma Bodha, we will come to the segment of Nididhyasana. Those verses are the practice verses in this work. But right from verse number 1, we will be practicing Atma Vichara of Bhagavan alongside the meditations on the verses from Atma Bodha. We find that this work is done by Adi Shankara, not as a translation of the commentary on Prasthanatrayi, that is the Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Sutras, and the 10 main Upanishads. Those commentaries are of a different nature. These books, these works come under the Viveka Chudamani, Atma Bodha, come under the Prakarana works, or the independent, the original works of the Guru. In fact, they form as preliminary or bridges to the so-called subtler and deeper works of Vedanta. So in one sense, from Ulladu Narpadu, we will be getting a little bit of expanded view, so to say, expanded approach with a little bit more concepts to understand, and therefore, in one sense, easier to grasp, but in another sense, with more concepts to let go of. So, in one sense, it makes for a bridge to Ulladu Narpadu and Atmavachara. At the same time, it could be some additional concepts which we may unknowingly add on and therefore have to take care to let go of, which will happen in the practice of Atmavicharam. But we have to keep the awareness of both these sides whenever we take the reading of some additional work. We take this up because not only because it comes from Adi Shankara, but also it is part of collected works where Bhagavan has translated some of the works of Adi Shankara, like the Viveka Chudamani, Atma Bodha, Dakshinamurti Stotram, all these, Hastamalaka Stotra, all these are works of Adi Shankara which have been translated into Tamil by Bhagavan. The translation itself happens sometime in the 1940s, where Subramaya is one of the persons present in the happening or unfolding of the translation of the work. Bhagavan is sent 2 copies of Tamil translation of Atma Bodha by a very earnest seeker belonging to the Islamic faith. He has meditated, translated the work, and after publishing, he sends 2 copies to Bhagavan by post. And on seeing them, Bhagavan asks for one of the old books 40 years ago where Atma Bodha Sanskrit is written, that Bhagavan says is the first book of the ashram. And he translates 2 of the verses into Tamil. And we all know what Bhagavan said to Lakshman Sharma. When Pandit Lakshman Sharma wanted to point out the errors in the interpretation of Saddarshanam by another writer and pleading with Bhagavan to intervene and correct the errors, what is the advice Bhagavan gives to Pandit Lakshman Sharma? Bhagavan says, if you feel somebody else has not done properly and you can do better, instead of finding out and discerning the errors in somebody else's work. You write what you feel is appropriate. You do the correct work. And we found that took 4 years for Lakshman Sharma ji. And Bhagavan himself says that was a tapas for him. He had to translate each of the works, each of the verses from Tamil to Sanskrit. And Bhagavan will merely say that this is not all right here or something to that effect. He will have to go and write that again. We are told of the stories of Zen masters where they will give some statement like, what was your face before you were born? What is the sound of a single hand clapping? And ask the student to write commentary or interpretation of it. And that process will go on for 10, 12 years with lot of trouble for the disciple. And finally, whatever they call as the satori, the happens for the realization happens for the disciple, that kavan is held and meditated on. Similarly, we find Lakshman Sharma ji meditating on the verses of Ulladu Narpade, and of course he comes up with the Sanskrit translation approved by Bhagavan, also the Tamil commentary, also the book Mahayoga. All those are the outputs that come from not going to find fault with another, but finding what is the truth within. And Bhagavan does that. He doesn't make any remark on the books received, but he starts framing the verses, and after 2 verses he puts it aside and say why we should do all this. Then after 2-3 days again he says, even if I stop, these verses are coming before me. Get the book stitched and give it to me. These verses will not leave until I translate all of them. So all the Sanskrit works, the Sanskrit verses are coming and standing in front of Bhagavan, and Bhagavan translates them. And he narrates it to the hall, to the people in the hall. See, this is what is happening. Though I am saying Neti, for whom is this? The verse is not going away. It is standing in front of me. Until I translate it, doesn't seem to go. And all the 68 verses are translated. And Muruganar, with all reverence and knowledge of who Bhagavan is, he says, what is so strange in this? Is it not said that the Vedas come and stand in front of Brahma every eon, every yuga? The Vedas come and stand in front of and reveal themselves again and again, so that that cycle can go on properly. It is similarly that before Bhagavan, that Anma Bodham has appeared. But Bhagavan gives a different twist to it. He says that is all right for you to say that this is like the Vedas appearing before Brahma. But it could be like this, like the Jayadeva story. In Jayadeva's story, where Gita Govindam is completed, he is doing the Udghatana, the offering of the work to the public at large in the king's court. A great function is organized, the hall is bedecked, and the book is about to be released. An old Brahmin is allowed into the hall, and from the end of the hall he accosts, stop Stop the release. Why, asks Jaydev, only a new book is worthy of release. Yours is an old work, says the old Brahman. And Jaydeva in all humility says, you are an aged person. Out of respect, I can't allow my anger to get the better of me. But this is the first time that these verses are being read in public. Only my eyes have accosted these verses. Then the Brahmin says, take verse number this. Is this not what is written there? And he narrates. Go to this page and this verse. Is this not what is written? And Jaydev comes running to the old man and falls at his feet. For he realizes that it can be none other than Vishnu himself, who permeates everything and knows everything. And Bhagavan says, we should not be surprised if someone else comes and claims this in this court. Adi Shankara or that Shankara himself may come and claim that this is no original work. And that is how Kanakammal introduces the book to us. What we are trying to take up is the Sanskrit works are being covered by Venkatesh ji in the Saturday satsangs, and he's quite gone far ahead into that. So we'll be reading the Sanskrit verses, but also Bhagavan's Tamil translation, keep both together. And keep Kanakamal's work and some of the other works on Atma Bodham from Ramakrishna Ashram. And there is a study notes for Vedanta students. Those who are interested, I can share those things with you. But while meditating on the Atma Bodham, we should not lose sight of Atma Vichara. So let us briefly see the layout of the Ulladu Narpadu that we have seen and Atma Bodha that we are about to take up. In Ulladu Narpadu, we had 42 verses in all. Let us recall all those verses. Verse 1 is said to be the complete essence of the whole work. Ulladala, ulla unarvu, ullado. That is the verse which indicated the existence, the absolute existence, and how anything else, the consciousness, the absolute consciousness, cannot remain apart from the absolute existence. And who can meditate, or how can someone meditate on that absolute existence except be one with that I? Other than the self, nothing else is seen. Other than the absolute seer, absolute drik, there is no drishya to be seen. That was in the first Mangala Shloka. The second went to the other extreme and dealt with the fear of non-existence. If the first one dealt with how to experience absolute existence, the second verse dealt with the fear of non-existence and how the surrender to that Maheshwara, that surrender to takes one to the surrender of the ego and realization of the self. So the self-realization through aparoksha anubhuti and through surrender to the self were taken up in the Mangala Shlokas. Then we saw in the layout that the first 4 verses were a complete coverage of the whole teachings. The first one was on the self, Namulagam Kandalal, Nanavam Shaktiula, Or Mudale Oppal, Urdalaye, Nama Uru Sitiramu, Parpanu, Serpadamu, Aruliyum, Athaniyum Tana, Avan. And the second one was on Ishvara, Mummudalai, Emmadamam, Murkullum. And the third one was about the world. Why discuss whether the world is Sat or Asat, Chit or Achit, bliss or sorrow. Why get into all this? Only letting go of the ego, the place where there is no world, and abiding in the self is what is recommended by the third verse. And the fourth one, that is experiencing of the world in reality. The fourth one was about the ego, Uruvam Tanayam, Ulagaparam Atram. Uruvam Tanandre, if you are not the form, then how to meditate on something else, the world or Ishvara, with the name and form? If you yourself have no name and form, then there is no way. Uvatrin Uruvate Kannurudal Yavanevan Kannalar Kaatshiyum. Can there be the seen apart from the nature of the eye? Kan Adithan Andamila Kanname. The self is the endless or blindnessless eye. So those 4 verses cover the entire gamut of teachings, and we also saw that just meditating on that 4th verse, that is Urvam Tanai, whenever you are caught up in the mesh of thoughts, oh, this is appearing because I am myself having a form as the I thought. So when I inquire for whom is this, and still that I, still that form, then the objective form automatically is let go of and goes into non-existence. The Ulagam or the Ishvara held as a form, and mostly with worry because that seems to be greater than us, is let go of when one goes into the stillness of one's own formlessness. Then 5, 6, 7 dealt with the world. Bhagavan would take from without the body, can there be a world? And the world is nothing but the sensory perceptions, all perceived through one mind. And in the 7th verse, Bhagavan would finish, Ulagum, Arivum, Ondrai Uditodungum. Yenum, Ulaga Arivu Tannal Olirum, Ulaga Arivu Tondri Maradar Kidanai, Tondri Marayadolirum, Pundrama Akde Pur. So that is how Bhagavan would finish the world, the 5, 6, 7 on the world. Then 8 to 22, we have on that one holding which everything else arises. So we had named it as the Ishvara, the power, the one holding which everything else. So Bhagavan would begin with how all name and form based sadhana is indeed a pathway. It is not thrown out. It is a pathway. It has helped us. But really to see the Supreme, எப்பெயரில் எவ்வுருவிலேத்தினும் அப்பேருருவில் அப்பொருளை காண்வழி அது ஆயினும் அம்மெய்ப்பொருளின் உண்மையில் தன் உண்மையை ஓர்ந்து ஒடுங்கி ஒன்றுதலே உண்மையில் காணும். In the truth of that one, to seek one's own truth, to find, abide and merge into that truth, he is really seeing God. Then a whole series of verses from 9 onwards, how the dyads and triads appear only holding on to one. If the truth of that one is inquired into, then the dyads and triads vanish. What are the dyads and triads? The good and the bad, birth and death, and so on and so forth. The triads are seer, seeing, seen, knower, knowing, known. All these appear and disappear, holding on to one. If you inquire into the truth of that one, then all those vanish. Then we have a whole sequence of 4 verses on the main dyad of Jnana Marga, the knowledge and ignorance. Then we have about first person, second person, third person, past, present, future. Then we have about time and space, Vidhi, Madhi. Before that, 2 verses, one on what is the truth of the body, what is the truth of the world. உடல் நானே தன்னை உணரார்க்கும் உணர்ந்தார்க்கும் உடலளவே நான் தன் உணரார்க்கு உடல் உள்ளே தன்னுணர்ந்தார்க்கு எல்லையற தானொளிரும் நான் உலகுண்மையாகும் உணர்வில்லார்க்கும் உள்ளார்க்கும் உலகளவாம் உண்மை உணரார்க்கு உலகினுக்கு ஆதாரமாய் உருவற்றாரும் உணர்ந்தார் உண்மை. And that segment up to 22 is finished off by how to have darshan of God. 3 verses. If you go with the seen, ignoring the seer, that is hardly any way to find the truth of God, because the seen is inert. And to become food of God, to become food of the Supreme, is to see the Supreme. மதிக்கு ஒளி தந்து அம்மதிக்குள் ஒளிரும் மதியினை உள்ளே மடக்கி பதியில் பதித்திடுதல் என்று பதியை மதியால் மதித்திடுதல் என்க. That is the 22nd verse finishing, that the Supreme is giving the light to the measuring instrument called mind. Now that light is beyond the measuring instrument. How can we measure that measuring transcended light through this inert measuring instrument called the mind? That is not possible. So let all measurings stop and let the mind be turned inward and fixed in that light and abide as that light. That is how the segment 8 to 22 is finished, dealing with Ishvara is nothing but the source of the mind, that self-luminous light, the Atma. Then begins a set of verses defining the problem as required by the work. That is 23, 24, 25, 26. The 4 problem defining verses which look at the ego, the Chit Jada Granthi, which is the root of the problem, the root of samsara, according to Ulladu Narpadu. Even if we don't understand the verses up to 22, as far as sadhana is concerned, if you can grasp from 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, then the problem definition and problem resolution are completely understood. Bhagavan says in those verses that Karuvam Ahandai Undayin Anethum Undahum. This Ahandai itself was called as Samsara, Chitjada Granthi, Maya. Everything is nothing but this ego. Udalalavam Ondru Udikum Idayilidu. Karuvam Ahandai Undayin Anethum Undahum. Ahandai Indrel Indranethum. Ahandaye Yavumam. Then begin before the 4 verses of sadhana, if you include 30th, 27, 28, 29, 30. Nanudiyad ulla nilai. Namaduvaai ulla nilai. Nanudikkum tanamadai nadamal. Nanudiya tannilappai sarvadevan. So, Nanudiyad ulla nilai. That where the I does not arise. Therefore, naturally, Tattvamasi, that one is. You are the Ullapurul there. You are shining as the Ullapurul, where the I does not arise. What one does when doubt arises, is this the final state? All one has to do is, doubt indicates see or seen. So, for whom is this doubt? That light of attention. Instead of trying to delineate the doubt, one should turn the attention on oneself. And self-attention is practiced once again. Then the diving deep, எழும்பும் மகந்தை எழுமிடத்தை நீரில் விழுந்த பொருள் காண வேண்டி முழுகுதல் போர் பேச்சு மூச்சடக்கிக் கொண்டுள்ளே ஆழ்ந்தறிய வேண்டும். Holding the breath and speech, one should dive deep. If one practice is of stilling the I, the koham, the who am I, the other practice is of kutoham or whence am I. Then the verse 30 is நானார் என மனமுள் நாடி உள நன்னவே நாணாம் அவந்தலை நாணமுறை நான் நாம் தோன்றுமது தானாக தோன்றினும் நான் அன்று பொருள் பூன்றமது. So when the ego is demolished, the Supreme rises and shines as I. That is the 30th. So the key verses are 24, 25, 26, 27 problem definition, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30 is the practice. Then 31 to 40 is the Anubhava shlokas or the Anubhava of the Jnani, incidentally clarifying many of the broad brushstrokes required in the area of Vedantic study and spirituality. Bhagavan would cover the area of what is, when does karma end, all the three karmas, what is the connection between the three types of interpretations of the Prasthanatrayi in the form of the Advaita, Advaita and Visishta Advaita, as well as Bhagavan would cover the Bhanga, Mukti, and what is real liberation, and thereby the 40th verse would end. That is the layout we had seen for Ulladunarpadu. We should hold it, we should keep practicing. That is the direct support. Now we are coming to a little bit more picturesque support. Atma Bodham is sometimes called a picture book in Vedanta because almost each verse has a drishtanta. Almost each verse has a practical world example. This is like this, that is like this. You can imagine this. This is how you will be. Pakasya vahnivat jnanam meghapaye amushavaniva. All these, each verse almost contains at least one picturesque reference which we can take use of. At the same time, take care not to overindulge in, because the Atman is what is to be held. So, a little bit of relaxation, but at the same time, self-responsibility not to go away into that area is required. Let us see the layout of this work, Atma Bodham. It contains 68 verses. Now here, instead of self-enquiry, the sadhana portion is called as nididhyasana. The shravana, the manana, and the nididhyasana. In the nididhyasana verses 31 to 41, again and again, there will be the repetition of I am so and so. I am not this. I am this. I am not this. I am this. And the last few verses, nearing 48, it will be directly about the Atman, but those are to be held as a single object attention with the seer not looking at anything else. That single shloka or the single meaning is to be held to the exclusion of everything else. Whenever something else comes, you have to hold that in meditation. And that is the main sadhana portion. But what we had discussed is that right from verse number 1, we will of course imbibe those important shlokas and what they mean to us. But our practice shall still remain, having gone through Ulladhanarpadu, the Anubandham, and Ulladhanarpadu again, not leaving self-enquiry. We will keep the self-enquiry practice right from verse number 1 in Anma Bodham. So the layout of Ulladhanarpadu, we have seen many times, but that's what it is. Now, let us go into the layout of Anma Bodham. In verses 1 to 5, the work delineates the journey. Who is eligible? Who is the right sadhaka? Then what is, why jnana? What is so important, or how important is jnana in this? And then what really happens when jnana comes? What happens to the ajnana? And what happens to the nididhyasana? Will you keep having to do the nididhyasana? There was this practice of observing thoughts that I was doing for some time. And I had gone to a workshop in Pune. The thought-free states were coming in and the freedom was being recognized. But still, I could see that still the full clarity, full light is not there. I understand that, and that is a strange place to be, that you understand that the light is pouring in, but still it's not completely clear. So in that workshop, in that seminar in Pune, it was a 2-day seminar. Those people the people conducting were the heads of that organization at all India level. So I had to raise this question, why this doubt remains, why this lack of clarity remains. And one of the suggestions to me in answer was, I had only raised 1 or 2 questions like that in the seminar, and one answer from one of the leaders was that you will have to keep doing nididhyasana always. There is no end to nididhyasana. Whatever nididhyasana was there in that sadhana, that means that nididhyasana would go on and on and on, and that has to be ever held. But that is not what this work is about. The verse number 4 or 5, it says that like the small chemical alum that is put in water to purify the water, how it will mix with the suspended impurities, it will bring down the suspended impurities, and along with the impurities, the alum will also be removed, leaving the water absolutely pure, or whatever purity it can be got from that process. Similarly here, the jnana sadhana also, it goes away. It ends because any sadhana, it involves duality, and the Atman is self-luminous. Therefore, whatever jnana sadhana we do, nididhyasana or atma uchara, it also ends in the self-luminous self. It is not to be kept eternally. So that is included in the first 5 verses. So 1 to 5. 6 to 14 is focusing on this samsara, the misery of samsara, how it arises, all these worlds. And some look at the upadhis, how the upadhis, then the stula, the sukshma, and the karana shariras. These are the things dealt in the verses 6 to 14, how the misery arises. Now, how can that misery, which appears so solid, be removed by something called knowledge, merely knowing? I know this, I don't know this, I know this. How that mere knowledge, it removes something as solid as this misery? That is explained in verses 15 to 30 as to what is Jnana Yoga. How is this Jnana Yoga going to work? You are the self. You are already that which you are looking for. But because of ignorance, see, the same problem is defined in Karma Yoga as you have done this whole lot of good deeds, but you have a whole of bad deeds, and the effort, the total summation is not setting up. So you have to go here, do this, do that, see that the account is settled, and then come to the yoga of letting go of not expecting the results, get purity of mind, then come to Bhakti Yoga. Know that the karma phala, why did you let go? Because it is sanctioned by one witness, one sakshi. So, not only should you not have karma phala apeksha, but also offer whatever you are doing. Karma itself is offered to God, and to know the mahima of God, so that the surrender is more and more perfect. We learn more and more about the mahima and go into Bhakti Yoga. But in Jnana Yoga, the definition is not that you have done something, therefore you will have to do something else, or there is something greater than you and which is controlling. Neither is the position taken. The position given by the Jnana Guru is that you are already the self. You are already the Purna Vastu. Because the final state is not one of achievement, is not one of getting. It is merely one of losing the limitation. Only letting go of ignorance. Therefore, the sadhana is only letting go of ignorance. And the siddhate is automatic, is self-luminous. Because that is what you already are. So the very problem definition in the margas is different. What is done with a lot of hard work, that hard work which involves huge amounts of time and place, is done with one shloka. Says that Namandri Nadede Nadede. We have gone to all those places, hurt all these people, put to death a whole village of people. In the story of Milarappa, he would have burnt down a whole village using black magic. But then he realizes that how am I going to overcome all that karma? Then in jnana, it's not that now you go and do all that, not that, but the whole understanding is in the subtle. It is in the subtle area that ignorance is veiling, therefore this whole area is being projected. Attack the veiling with nididhyasana as per Anma Bodham and Atma Vichara as per Ulladunarpadu. Then that veil is torn apart and the projection vanishes. That is the Jnana Yoga component, verses 1 to 5 on the journey. Who is eligible? What happens when why Jnana is so important? Why karma can never answer? That is verse number 2. What happens when Jnana comes in? Will the Nididhyasana have to be done eternally? All that is 1 to 5. 6 to 14 is the samsara. How all these worlds which appear so solid come about. They'll bring slowly to the Sukshma Sharira, to the Karna Sharira. And then come to Jnana Yoga. It is only knowing who you are, 15 to 30. 31 to 41, the verses are on Nididhyasana. The Nididhyasana is that we practice, I am this, I am not that. And those verses have to be held without break. That is what the teachers from Ramakrishna Ashram who have translated that work, they all say that the Nididhyasana verses have to be held eternally, have to be held constantly, not eternally, constantly, till the veil is cut asunder. Then comes the Anubhava Shlokas, plenty, 42 to 68, 42nd verse to 68 verse is Anubhava Shlokas. Let me just read one Anubhava Shloka in Tamil, then we will sit for Atma Vicharam. A very interesting verse, verse number 50. It is about Atma Rama, how the Jnani is called Atma Rama. This verse is supposed to be the essence of Adhyatma Ramayana. Mohak kadal kadandu மூளாசை கோபம் முதல் ஆகும் அரக்கர் அறக்கொன்று யோகி அமைதியோடு கூடி ஆன்மாவில் இன்பத்து அமைந்து ஒளிர்வன் நேரே அரி. The Adhyatma Ramayana part here in this verse, let me directly go there and then finish it off. This is the summing up of the whole work. What is the Arakkars, the Asuras of, what are the Asuras? Kobam Mudala, Raga, Dvesha, and all that, the enemies, the inner enemies, which are more powerful than outer enemies. The outer enemies are nothing. They are three-dimensional. The inner enemies have multiple dimensions. And they are much more powerful. They detract us from our goal infinitely more than the outer enemies. Now these inner enemies, what they have done, they have captured Sita, the Shanti, and kept inside in the island. And they have thrown the Rama, who is now a Jiva, outside the ocean, onto the land in India. The ocean is the samsara, and the throwing is done by the Ragadvesha, the Arakkars. Now what the Jnani has to do? He has to cross the samsara. What has pushed him? The likes and dislikes. The likes and dislikes have thrown him where? Have thrown him somewhere there, and he feels, no, it's not here, it is there. No, not there, but somewhere else, in time and place. But the journey is inward. That one has to inquire, for whom is this like, for whom is this dislike. Then the like and dislike are crossed, and one is crossing the ocean and coming towards Sri Lanka, coming towards the place where the Sita is kept, the Shanti is kept. And Mohak kadal kadand, that samsara sagara is made of the like and aversion. And how it is crossed by the Jnani? By Kobam Mudalahum Arakkar Arakkundru. All the inner enemies in the form of emotions, negative emotions, positive emotions, all squashed, annihilated by the Jnani. Yogi Amaidiodu Kudi Atmavil Inbit Amarvan. The yogi now joins the Atma and finds the peace that is inside. And this is supposed to be the essence of Adhyatma Ramayana. In the Padale Shankarar, Adhyatma Ramayana Mudalil, Porulai Ulladakki Solliyadaga Periyorgal Kuruvodu Vazhakkam. So that shows us that where this Atma Bodha is going to take us is, it is going to give us some more details about the journey. That the Mohak Kadal from Ulladinarpada, we are going to get some more details. But how the samsara, the ocean of moha is going to come. What are the inner enemies? There is going to be some more definitions. And obviously, we'll be using only one Brahmastra to cross the Mohak Kadal and squash the inner enemies. And that is how the Atma is reached. The sadhaka drops all the ajnana and realizes that one's very nature is the self-luminous self. Now, with that, let's take that the brief introduction to Atma Bodham is complete, and we can start with the verses from the coming week. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Can we sit in Atma Vicharam till 8 o'clock so that we can listen to Akka. Thank you, ma. Thank you. Namo Ramana. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self manifest as Ramana, we have commenced today a journey into Bhagavan's work, the Anma Bodham, which is a translation of Adi Shankara's Sanskrit work, Anma Bodham. And whatever Bhagavan touches, it will have his own, what is called the Midas touch. See, the Midas story is, of course, a sad story where the king wants everything to turn into gold and his wish is granted. So he touches everything, he touches his daughter, and finally he touches himself and he also turns into gold. But the point is that the Midas touch is a phrase in English which refers to the golden touch, the Swarna Hastaka Ramana. When he touches something, that also gets absorbed into the Ramana magic or the Ramana path or the Ramana way of self-enquiry. Bhagavan, when he accepts something and he gives it back to us, it has its own stamp. So this journey which we will be undertaking is a journey with Ramanacentre, not only with Shankara, but a journey with Ramanacentre or with Ramana himself. So that is the journey which he has allowed us by his grace. And what did we experience today? We had the wonder of an overview of the entire Ullathu Narpadu. And this was given to us within such a short time span. And if we want to go back to it again and again, we can find it, the crux of or the Sara of Ullathu Narpadu was given to us. But why did Nandakumarji give us this Sara of Ullathu Narpadu? He gave it to us saying that we should use that as the foundation for diving into this work, this journey which we are now embarking on. This journey is to be undertaken holding on to the thread of Ullathu Narpadu, holding on to the current of Ullathu Narpadu, holding on to the goal of Ullathu Narpadu. If Ullathu Narpadu has a goal, we should undertake this journey or any other journey for that matter in our life. Any journey we may come to. This is what is the undercurrent of what Nandakumarji is telling us. No matter what we may undertake, it may be a journey into something as great as a text like Anma Bodham, or it may be a journey to our neighbor's house or our neighboring town or into a neighboring country. It may be a physical journey. It may be another journey which we have to undertake in life, in which so many circumstances bring to us a journey in our business, a journey in our personal lives. So many journeys are there. What Nandakumarji has given us today to hold on to is keep Ullathu Narpadu as the thread, that Manigalil Saradu, that undercurrent. Keep that as the undercurrent and then embark on any learning, on any new knowledge, into any realm of thought. This is one beautiful guideline that has been given to us today. And in another sense, I was reminded, a thought came that, to come to Anma Bodham, that is what Nandakumarji is saying, this is a picturesque text, it has many examples, it has many other sides, drishtantas, stories, references to other texts. Whereas Ullathu Narpadu is just the pure essence only. So it is normally the process should be a reverse process. Normally, all the drishtantas, everything is crossed, and then one comes to the essence. But here, what are we doing? We have been given the essence, and then we are coming to the other text which has drishtantas, which has a wider explanation about the nididhyasana, the practice. Now, this is like Bhagavan saying that the best way to read a book or the best manner in which to approach any scripture is after being established in the self. This is what Bhagavan says. You should first be established in the self. Then you can read the scriptures. You should not read the scriptures first in order to get established in the self. This is like the Zen koan. Again, Nandakumarji referred to the Zen koan. This is like the Zen koan, which says the best way to climb a mountain is from the top of it. But that is what Bhagavan has allowed us to do. He has allowed us to have the anubhava of the essence first and then explore the rest. This is what happened in Bhagavan's own life. That is why he tells us that is the best way, because he had the anubhava without any scriptural knowledge or approach or any of the words. Then when he came to that, when he read all these scriptures, he could see, oh, these are only talking about my anubhava. These are only talking about the self. There is nothing apart from it. So when one approaches everything from the adhara of the essence of Ulladu Narpadu, the Atmanubhava, the Atma Vichara leading to the Atmanubhava, then one can understand all this. Then one can see the world from the perspective of the Atma Vichara, from the perspective of the Jnana. Personally, in my life, I had, I think, this a great advantage, which appeared as a great advantage to me, that first in our family, I and my sister were introduced to Bhagavan and Bhagavan's teachings. And after that, there was exposure to the other teachers. And then, of course, I had exposure to various literatures as a part of my study, and finally leading up to my thesis. But everything was appeared from the perspective of Bhagavan's teachings only. Everything seemed to fall into place in Bhagavan's teachings itself, because Bhagavan had been gracious enough to give that as the adhara. And for many of us, life may bring many exposures, many aspects of life, not only in the external life, but also in the inner journey. One does not know, because one has one's own samskaras, one has one's own predilections, one's own conditioning, one's own background. So one does not know what kind of a unique spiritual journey will be there for each one of us. So when these various other aspects come up in one's spiritual journey, these are the aspects which are being touched upon by these other texts. So when they come up, how do we relate to them? How do we deal with them? It is through the adhara of Atma Vichara. This is what Nandakumarji says that we should hold on to. This was one very beautiful gift which has come to us today, which, as I said, and I would like to repeat it, that it is not relevant only to the study of Atma Bodha, but this is to be held as the adhara for all our experiences, all into which the mind moves. It has to come back to the reference point of Ulladu Narpadu. And then there is also the other analogy which comes to my mind is that of a river. One may take the Ganges, for instance. So the Ganges comes, the Ganga comes. She comes from the somewhere in the glacial ice, where, from there she comes, and she comes in the Gangotri, and then the path is absolutely cutting very precise, very vigorous, strong. That path she cuts when she comes down and she cuts the mountains and she comes down. That is the force of self-enquiry. But once she comes down to the valley, then even somewhere along the mountains, slowly she is joined by several tributaries. She allows other tributaries to join her. See, the Ganga at the source is totally pure, only the Ganga, like the Ulladinarpadu, Bhagavan, we can see him as a young boy of 16, getting into the self, being in the Patala Lingam, totally unaware of the body, absolutely nothing else. And then allowing Parani Swami to come, looking at the text, then getting into more text, looking at all of them, giving explanations, just absorbing for what purpose? Widening himself in order to be more and more and more accessible. The Ganga becoming wider, including everything into herself, including all the tributaries into herself, and making them all into Ganga alone, making them all into Ganga. So whatever comes, Bhagavan, whatever he accepts and gives, continues to give to us, they all become like the Ganga, they all become Bhagavan, they all become Ramana, they all become self-enquiry. So all the inputs that come to us become the inputs for self-enquiry, the supports for self-enquiry, the clarifications for self-enquiry in connection with some other areas of experiences that we may have. Such is the grace of the Ganga of Ramana, which is the teaching of Ramana. Muni calls Bhagavan's teachings the Ganga in Ramana Gita. So that is how the Bhagavan's teachings are. And that is how his grace allows other things to come and join into him. And that is how the Anma Bodham of Adi Shankara also has joined into this Ramana Veda and is coming to us by his great grace to reveal to us that only truth, the truth of the self. And that is the only purpose of Bhagavan's whole life. Because otherwise, for what purpose did he keep the body? Or what purpose did the divine keep his body? Because he didn't even have that sankalpa. It is only for sharing. And that is also very clear when the introduction which Nandakumar ji gave, that the verses came to him. They waited upon him to translate them. They sort of requested him to translate them. And each will have its relevance. We do not know one word of Bhagavan which comes, of what great significance it can be to a particular sadhaka. We do not know. And that is why his grace is allowing us to continue this journey of Ulladinarpadu through Anma Bodham. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramanaka. Namo Ramanaka.